our summit by inviting to the pulpit someone who is probably known to many of you here who have been paying attention and have been following this issue from some time. Dr. Orly Taitz is well known around the country as an attorney who brought to public view a number of legal cases exposing Barack Hussein Obama's illegitimacy to the U.S. presidency, as well as his use of a Connecticut Social Security number that he claims he legally got in Hawaii. As well as his contradictory educational record, Dr. Orly Taitz is the only attorney who was granted an oral hearing in this matter in the U.S. State District Court in Keys. I think it was Keys versus Obama and all. It was filed on behalf of the U.S. Ambassador to the United States, Alan Keyes, 10 state representatives, and 30 high-ranked officers of the U.S. military, as well as high-profile case featuring active reserves and active duty members of the U.S. military. When the U.S. military revoked deployment orders for Major Cook, client of Dr. Taitz, when he questioned Obama's eligibility, it became clear to the whole world that there is a serious problem in the eligibility of Barack Obama. Dr. Taitz has 2 doctorate degrees. She is a doctorate of jurisprudence and a doctorate of dental surgery. Dr. Taitz is a president of the Defend Our Freedom Foundation and editor of the Orly Taitz Esquire.com blog, where she writes prolifically on the issue of constitutional law, politics, economy, constitutional education of our youth. Dr. Taitz is married to her husband for 23 years and a mother of 3 sons, aged 22, 20, and 18. Her oldest son is a graduate from an Ivy League university. Her second son is entering into an Ivy League university, and the third one is also entering into an Ivy League university. We need to pray for them very seriously. Dr. Taitz is born and raised in communist Soviet Union and knows firsthand the bleakness of the totalitarian regime and the deprivation of constitutional rights. As Mr. Obama became U.S. President, Dr. Taitz was deeply concerned by the fact that he refused to present any of his original vital records, and by the fact that the issue of Mr. Obama's dual citizenship and split allegiance was not heard in any court of the land. Dr. Taitz has embarked on a pro bono mission to bring this issue to light and have it heard on its merits. Dr. Taitz, would you come to the microphone? Keep that right in your mouth.
Thank you very much. It's such a pleasure to be among friends. And when I have to go through so many attacks from Obama administration and come to an audience and fight, it's so pleasant to be here where everybody is a friend. And first of all, I wanted to thank Rudy and Erin Davis for bringing me here, making this possible. Erin was driving me from the airport. I wanted to also to thank Pastor Brodin, who is so graciously given such a beautiful bio of me. And I wanted to thank Pastor Manning, who's been a supporter for a long time, and a number of people here. There is Mickey Booth, and a number of people in this audience who've been supporters, Pastor Drake, who've been there for me over the years. And because today's summit is about constitutional elections, I wanted to digress a bit and start not by talking about Barack Obama but talking about serious issues of elections fraud that everybody should know about, that we need to watch for. One of them is total lack of reliability in those electronic voting machines and electronic ballot counting scanners. In 2004, a company called Sequoia that controls all of our electronic, not all, but I would say 70% of our elections software and hardware all over the states, and in about 70% of counties, was sold to a company called Smartmatic. And at that time, not many people knew that Smartmatic was a front shell company where the president of the company, a gentleman, Antonio Mujica, was not a U.S. citizen. He had dual citizenship, still does, of two countries. One is Spain, another is Venezuela. We also found out, and as I did research, that Mr. Mujica owns a company called Vista, and it's a company that's controlling software and hardware in Venezuela that was used during the recall of Hugo Chavez. And something interesting happened then and there. Right before the recall, all of the polling showed that Hugo Chavez is about to lose his bid. There was a referendum. And the breakdown was 60-40 against Hugo Chavez. All of the exit polls showed 60-40 against Chavez. This gentleman, Antonio Mujica, who controls or at least controlled until now, our election software, and their election software was in charge of the elections there. And at the end of the day, announced that indeed the breakdown was 60-40, but in favor of Chavez. The election was flipped. And I've seen a number of states where the results were similarly suspicious. Right before the 2010 election, I visited Nevada. How many of you watched Sharon Engel in Nevada? She's a number of people know who she is. She is a constitutionalist. She's a conservative. And I watched the polls until the day of the election. Poll after poll after poll showed her leading by 4 to 5%. Unanimously, which is extremely rare, because typically the polls that are done by left-wing organizations like ABC, CBS, New York Times, Emerson College, they're skewed against conservatives. But all of the polls showed Sharon Engel winning by about 4 to 5%. At the end of the day, I remember they had something, power outage there, and after the power outage, they announced the results, and it was 5% split, but in favor of Harry Reid, and that's how Harry Reid came back to be the Senate Majority Leader. The elections there were very questionable. And I brought a number of cases. I brought it to the Supreme Court of California, and I brought expert opinion showing that elections can be easily rigged. Those electronic machines, electronic voting machines, electronic ballot counting scanners can be easily rigged. And just to demonstrate the point, I usually bring forward the example of summer savings time. You don't touch your computer. You don't do anything. But on a certain day, at a certain moment, the computer skips an hour. Why? Because of programming. Well, the same thing can be done with those electronic ballot counting scanners and electronic voting machines. They can be programmed, they can be rigged, they can be hacked, they can be programmed where they would either flip the results or they would give different values. For example, your vote for a conservative candidate will be given a value of 1. But someone else's vote for a liberal candidate will be given a value of 2. And that's a serious problem. And I'm asking each and every one of you to please help me fight this fight to bring forward lawful elections. For example, in Germany, they decertified all of the electronic equipment because it can be rigged so easily. But here in the United States, we have so much corruption amongst our elected officials, and unfortunately many judges that would do absolutely nothing. And I'm wondering why. Maybe because they are the products of those rigged elections, and they know if they clean up the elections, they might not be there next time around. But that's something that needs to be brought to attention of voters, and we need to fight. We need to go to the election officials, secretaries of state, attorney generals, and fight to clean up elections and decertify those electronic machines. Another thing that is happening now more so than before, and that's with George Soros's little shindig little organization called Project Secretaries of State. And what they did, they really undermined lawful elections around the country. They came up with an insane notion that if you ask for a driver's license, for verification, any verification of a voter at the precinct, somehow it is racist, somehow it's prejudicial against minorities, and it makes absolutely no sense. They are saying that for you to show your driver's license will disenfranchise you as a voter. Why so? When you get on the plane, does it disenfranchise you to show your driver's license? When you're going to get, when you need to get your driver's license, you would show something, some type of ID. You would show your birth certificate to show your identity. When a cop stops you, regardless of what your race is, what's your background, he would ask you for your driver's license. And here we have the most sacred right to vote, to express your First Amendment rights. And your lives depend on those votes. And we can have millions of people who are voting illegally around the country, and corrupt secretaries of state, and corrupt officials, and corrupt judges are allowing this to go on and preventing us from having just the most basic, sane method of checking for election frauds by asking to see the driver's license or some other form of ID. And that needs to stop. For all we know, we've seen in the state of California illegals getting voter registration cards. They're filling them out. Quite often, union bosses are making them go and vote. They give them the cards where the name's already marked. They have to go. They have to vote the way they're told. Many times, these people are either here illegally, or they might be here legally, but they're just residents. They're not U.S. citizens. And all of them are voting and undermining our rights and our elections. This has nothing to do with race or country of origin, regardless what country you came from. In order to vote, in order to have the sacred right, you have to be a U.S. citizen, and this is not being upheld. So this is extremely important. One thing that you can do to check if the elections are lawful is make a pack in your district. For example, in your precinct, typically not too many people vote in each and every precinct. Is there anybody who ever worked at a precinct? Raise your hands. A number of people. Can you tell me, can you give me numbers? How many people are usually vote in your precinct, sir? Approximately. Any? Yes, sir.
Our last municipal election turned out 36%. The school board election recently turned out 3%.
3%, but how many people are registered in your precinct?
How many are registered?
Yeah, 3% of what? Of what number?
Our precinct is about
3,000.
3,000.
So it's 90 people. So you see the numbers are not that big. And we can check. As a matter of fact, you can go and ask to see the names of people that voted. You're not asking to know how they voted or who they voted for. You're just You just want to see the names. And you can check, for example, in California, in San Bernardino County, 5,000